Hello, welcome to this Guardian live event. I am Miranda Sawyer, and in the other screen, as you know, is Patti Smith, poet, singer, songwriter, author, photographer, worker, she calls herself.
A lot of stuff, right?
All that stuff, a worker. I'm going to do my introduction anyway, Patti, whether you like it or not, okay? So you are often called Punk's Poet Laureate. She shaped the New York City punk rock scene with her debut album, Horses. She has published many collections of poetry and has also made her name as a powerful and inventive memoirist. She won the National Book Award for Just Kids, her account of her life with Robert Mapplethorpe in 1970s New York, which was followed by two more memoirs, M Train and Year of the Monkey. During the pandemic, Patti launched a Substack newsletter, which led to The Melting, which is a longer work that kind of blurs fact and fiction and responds to the claustrophobia of lockdown. But we are here tonight to talk about this. Can you see this fantastic work? A Book of Days, a new collection of photography, which gives us a photograph every day of the year, including the 29th of February, miniature windows into travels, inspiration, and creative life. Patti, hello and welcome. Congratulations on your publication day.
Thank you. It's publication day and also the 21st birthday of my cat, who might come and visit us at some point, Cairo. It's her 21st birthday. Yes. So it's, and George O'Keeffe's birthday. So a very nice day.
This is a great day indeed. So just for the, before I ask the first question, I just want to say how this event is going to run. It's an hour long about, so we're going to be talking for 40 minutes, but we'd love to hear from all of you in the audience. So you can send questions via the Q&A button, and we'll answer as many as we can in the last section of the event, last 20 minutes. If you want to put your name and where you're joining us from, that's just how it's done. Okay. So it is publication day. It is also Cairo's birthday, but I think I would like to talk about how this beautiful book came about, because it's not a straightforward diary, meaning that you have images from your Instagram account and you have black and white Polaroids, some from now, from your archive, and you pulled it together during lockdown. Is that right?
Yes. I mean, actually, most of the photographs now are original. Some of them I gleaned from my Instagram. I certainly got the idea from Instagram in giving an image and a caption and having something to say, but I wanted it to be wholly original, or as original as possible. So because I couldn't go anywhere, I was in lockdown, I had to go to my archive, and I have boxes of Polaroids, boxes and boxes. And also my phone. I had my phone. I was thinking, looking at it the other day, you can almost tell my lockdown pictures because they're all by my bookcase. They're in my room. They're at my desk. And because I was fairly confined, but it was an adventure.
It is an adventure. There are some very beautiful deskscapes, I suppose you could call them. Some, I mean, there's a couple that are in a cafe, you know, in cafes and stuff, but you have a lovely, as you said, kind of almost not quite repeated motif of taking a picture of where you are and arranging a few kind of objects like talismans, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
To make you think or to remind you of things. And
people, you know, certain people. I mean, even looking right now at my desk, I have Sam Shepard's pocket watch and things that were my mother's, things my brother gave me. They're all around, and presents from my daughter. They're all around, and I sometimes work and I'll stop and look at one of them or hold one of them. And many of them found their way into the photographs.
Yeah, they are. They're very beautiful. We're going to see kind of 5 of the photographs, but I wanted to just talk a little bit about, I mean, it's a weird thing to say, but it's correct, the aesthetic of it, because obviously you have a very strong personal aesthetic. As we can see even through the screen now that you have your look, but also even behind you, we can see the look of your apartment. And this comes through here, doesn't it? And I'm interested, because you've always been very strong on images, on how the image affects one, and where you feel some of that comes from, because some of it is kind of elegiac, some of it is almost religious, almost feels?
Well, I think first of all, I was first aware that photography was, was an artful vocation, because when I was a kid, I living in a lower middle class neighborhood than a rural area. I didn't see, I wasn't going to museums or galleries. And I remember my mother always had the Sears catalog. I don't know if they have that
We have the equivalent.
equivalent. And that's what I saw. That was fashion. And one day I found some very old, this is in the 50s, Vogue and Harper's Bazaar magazines. They were very big format. And the photographs were taken by Irving Penn and Diane Arbus and her husband, just exquisite photographs. And though I was a child, I quickly saw the difference. And this struck me. And I remember showing them to my mother, and she had no real opinion about this. She was happy with her Sears catalog. And I thought, why wouldn't they want everything to look like these images, these Irving Penn images? So I've always, very early, I developed some kind of aesthetic awareness. And it's just part of, how I operate, how I see things.
Yeah. And do you take photographs all the time? There's a lovely entry quite early on of your preferred camera. I'm going to find it. There it is. Look, the Polaroid.
Yes.
Can we see it? The Polaroid Land 250 with a Zeiss rangefinder. No flash, we notice.
No, I don't know how to use that. I just use natural light, and especially twilight when it was very silvery. I loved my camera because I'm also not very technical, and I love taking pictures, but the technology of this camera was perfect for me. Near, far, and dark light. That was
I do.
But I got to know this camera so intimately, and I learned about light and what was the most exquisite light. And I was very attached to it and took it everywhere I went. But, some years ago, Polaroid film was discontinued for that particular camera. And I was a bit brokenhearted, but I also am very conscious of environmental issues. And I thought there's so many chemicals in this film that maybe it was better for the environment, but I was still a bit sad. But now I've made friends with my phone, and it's become a nice companion to me when I'm traveling. I can still take fairly nice pictures with it.
They might bring a filter in as well, maybe, that would do the same thing. That's what they tend to do.
Yeah, I've never used anything like that with my Polaroid camera, but it's a tool, it's an aid.
Yeah.
So I've learned to use that.
Yeah. When do you, obviously you, like I said in the introduction, you classify yourself as a worker. So obviously you make music, you write, you take photographs, you're constantly kind of, creating. What is the, what moves you to use different media?
Well,
when do you know how to flip?
It's according to the need. Essentially, I feel I'm a writer. I write every day. That's really how I look upon myself. I've been writing since I was a kid, and it's where I put the largest amount of my energies and discipline into. But if I feel the need to express myself visually or in a song, in a poem, then I do. It's just the way I am. I wish I only had one vocation. Like I always think of Joan Mitchell, the painter. That's what she did. She was a painter. And she would say that, I'm a painter and nothing else. And I was so envious of that. But I've always been multidisciplined. I don't really know why, but that's what I'm drawn to. And but of all my vocations, I think performing comes the most naturally to me. And I'm not really a musician per se. I don't really play anything well except feedback. And but as a performer, it just comes naturally. I have no fear. I love to go and greet the people, even if I make mistakes, or it doesn't matter. I like that communication and that energy exchange. And but as writing, everything starts with writing. Poetry led me to performing, which led me to rock and roll. So I can trace everything back to poetry.
And these are quite, I mean, there's a lot of different, I mean, I don't want to, there are themes, I think, in your book.
They weave in and out. Yeah,
exactly. They weave in and out. And there's a kind of technique in some of the book where you, on one side of the page, you perhaps reference somebody like Sam Shepard, and then you reflect it on the other side as well. So you get this kind of one date followed by another date, and it might be triggered by a birthday, but you get a lovely reflection. That's obviously very considered, and you do that throughout.
Well, it's when I first thought of doing this book, it was inspired by my Instagram, and I hadn't thought about that, because in Instagram, obviously, is one image, one caption. And then I was confronted with the double spread, and I thought, oh, this is not going to be as easy as I thought, because what's on the other side, you explained it perfectly, should be a reflection or reverberate or have some kind of connection, at least aesthetically. Sometimes it's just the color orange will meld two images. But the one that you mentioned, Sam, a photograph I took of Sam was on the left-hand side, and on the right, it was Samuel Beckett's birthday. And there's an image of a book that Sam gave me of Beckett's work. And that was Beckett's birthday. So in that way, I was able to actually give a lot of information in a small way.
Yeah.
Sam is a writer. Sam was a writer, and who loved Beckett, and it was Beckett's birthday. So yeah, I'm glad you chose that particular example, because putting that page, those two pages together, meant a lot to me.
That's good. Well, yeah, it's good. There's a lot of one of the things that you do in the book as well is it's like you trigger us to look for other artists all the way through. I mean, throughout, there's so many. I mean, I started writing some of them down. I mean, you can see my notes. It just keeps going. There are so many artists, whether they're, William Burroughs, whether it's Joan Baez, whether it's Camus, whether it's writers and people who have inspired you throughout. And that's a very lovely way of introducing, some I knew, some I don't know, some introducing us all to the world that has influenced you. Also,
I was happy to not only poets, and of course there's a lot of poets and writers because I'm very focused on that, but painters, sculptors, some scientists. And I also discovered a few years ago an Iranian mathematician named Miranda Sawyer, and she's awesome. My daughter's next to her.
Yeah, that's one of the pictures. I've shown the picture of your daughter, and there she is.
It was International Women's Day, so I put them both together. And this mathematician was the first woman and the first Iranian to receive the Fields Prize, which is the highest accolade in mathematics. And I've just always loved mathematics, even though I'm not very good at it. And I'm always interested in the people that are immersed in mathematics. So I didn't know much about her, so it gave me a point of study. There's a few different people that I didn't really know. I just happened upon them and then wanted to share them with people. And that's the nice thing, both about Instagram and hopefully this book, is sharing a lot of information, books, people, filmmakers that I have gratitude for, and to share them with others.
Yeah. Shall we see? We've got a few images that we can see larger. Maybe we could have the first one up. It's a picture from, the date is, let me have a look. It's early in the book. There it is.
Oh.
Isn't that lovely? It's
Yes.
so do you want to talk us through this one? It's in January, this one.
Yes, the light was very beautiful in my room, and it's actually, I think, an unfiltered picture. It's a cell phone picture, but it was very monochromatic, and it struck me. It's my father's cup. I bought that from my father years and years ago at Charles Dickens' house at, I think it's in Hempstead on the Heath, somewhere in the. I went to Charles Dickens' house, and it was a souvenir cup, a beautiful porcelain cup. And I gave it to my father because he's a big coffee drinker, and he loved it. And nobody was allowed to drink out of this cup, not even me. No one was allowed to touch it. And in the back is a picture of my father when he was young. And it's really just a small homage to my father. And I still would never have the nerve to drink out of it. But I'm so... my mother gave it to me when my father passed away.
That's very lovely. I mean, there is, throughout the book, there's a kind of a sense of you living with people who are alive and people who are not with us anymore, who are dead as well. And one of the things you say, that you call it the blessed task of remembrance towards the end. You use that phrase, which is very beautiful. And that's part of the book, isn't it?
Oh, yes, of course, because I have many great friends and new friends and colleagues, but I mean, Robert Mapplethorpe, my pianist, Richard Soule, who was only 37, my husband, my brother, all of these beautiful men in my life were under 45. And then my parents, and just recently, Sam Shepard, but so many people that I loved and worked with and thought that I would know for the rest of my life. So I have to keep them with me and walk with them as I can. And even my mentors, William Burroughs and Allen Ginsberg, I've been lucky, very lucky, and had so many great and supportive friends. And I have great friends now. But I think it's important to remember people that have had a great influence on us and the people that we love, because that's how they stay alive. They stay alive in human memory. Yeah,
and they're in you, so they have to be.
Yeah, I need to get out sometimes.
Yeah, they have to be out there.
I know you're there, so let's take a walk.
Let's look at another photo. This is of someone very living, I think. Hopefully our second one. Yay.
That's my daughter, Jessie. And she was on a march, and it was, I believe it was a march for International Women's Day. I could be wrong because she has marched so many times, and I like to march with her. Yes, it was for International Women's Day.
I think so. We can see the placard, and also she's got pink hat.
Yes, and Jessie is a climate change activist. She co-founded Pathway to Paris, and she's also a pianist and plays with me. I had an event last night, and she played piano with me. And yeah, she's just she's a wonderful gift. Yeah. And she, sorry, it's like I'm just smiling. I'm lost for words because I feel like she's smiling at me.
Yes, but it's a great picture. I loved it. It really pings out. She's got such a great expression. She pops throughout the book, but this one is such a lovely picture, right?
Well, it was so spontaneous. I was walking with her, and I got ahead, and I turned around and looked at her, and she smiled at me. And I had my phone. I just took it because it was just such a happy moment, and I love the Dissent is Patriotic, which is, of course, absolutely true. It's the Thomas Paine way of looking at things.
Yeah, yeah, and it's how we progress. Right, I'm going to go to another one. Oh, this one is having had a very full of life picture. Now we're going to move to death. So this one is on the 11th of August, and this is part of a double page. So on the other side, this is Jackson Pollock's grave, and on the other side is Lee Krasner's grave as well. Do you want to talk through this? This is an amazing. I didn't know his grave was like this. It's amazing.
Jackson Pollock died in 1955, and his wife Lee Krasner, also a great artist, found this huge boulder for him, and it has it's embedded. You can't really see it, but there's there's a plaque that has his name in his sort of in his script, his signature. And the beautiful thing about this, this was a very, very overcast day, a very silvery day, and it's a Polaroid. And the beautiful thing is this boulder in time has so much lichens, I think it's called, and mold and different things on it, that it actually, part of it looks like his paintings. It's you can't see it so much in this photograph, but it's very streaked with moss and all kinds of things. Lee Krasner's grave is not far away from his, and she used a boulder that Jackson had found before his death that he was thinking of using perhaps in a sculpture or some kind of installation, but he didn't do that. It's a smaller one, but it's a good companion to this. And she left instructions for it to go upon her grave. So I like to visit them. And there's several artists in that cemetery. It's in Cold Springs in New York.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. It's an amazing, I mean, obviously he was an amazing artist, but that grave, I found it very it took me back, like.
Oh, it's like
it's
him,
Yeah.
He was, he was everything was like a monolith. Everything he did had such strength, even though he obviously suffered and had his own weaknesses as an artist. He was not weak at all. He was so strong. And she chose something that spoke of the best of his qualities.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. And her work as well was absolutely amazing, really brilliant. Okay, we've got another one here. This one is so this one is a picture of you.
Oh, that's nice. Jesse took this photograph of me. We went to the opera together in Milan. We were invited to a premiere, and I was just, I just sitting during intermission, and Jesse took this picture. I like this picture. It's very flattering, but it's it's nice to have a photograph that your daughter took of you. And yeah. And I love the opera, and not everyone likes to go to the opera. So I was delighted that Jesse also developed a taste for it. So it's very nice to go to the opera with Jesse. Of course, Jesse dresses beautifully. She wears sometimes gowns or
there's a lovely shot of her as well next to it. Amazing.
I think she had a Stella McCartney dress on, I think. Very pretty. Yeah.
Very beautiful. Okay, look, so I'm going to go to the final image that we have. And this is a prime example of what we were talking before about a deskscape, but also something that pushes you to look at something else. So this is a picture of Albertine Zarazin, who I knew nothing about, but immediately looked up. She had an incredibly tragic but amazing life.
Yes. And it's amazing that you chose this. This is the very last image that I shot for the book. I don't remember the date. I believe it might be her birthday. She's right
December.
next to Jean Genet.
Yeah.
If it's not her birthday, it's close, but I put her right next to Jean Genet, both orphaned, both
18th of December.
yes, going through a life of crime, both in prison and both just wondrous writers. And it was the last picture I took. And funny enough, the one with Jean Genet next to it has all kinds of debris of mine, including paper clips and all kinds of things. And just by chance, Albertine's has this masking tape. I failed to take it off when I took the picture, and I was going to reshoot it. And I thought, no, I like the way it circles Astragal. She was not that well known. She actually went out of print. She was published by Grove in like 1968. And I actually sort of begged New Directions to reprint Astragal in English from the Grove Press edition. And I said I would write an introduction if they would reprint it. And they did. So I was very proud of that. She did have the most difficult life. And the saddest part about it was that she, after a life of strife and writing, she finally got out of prison. Many writers spoke up for her, as they did for Genet, and she was released from prison. And she was getting recognition, a publisher. Things were going very well. And she went into the hospital she had to get some surgery on a kidney, and very negligent anesthesiologist failed to get her weight. She was very tiny and gave her way too much anesthesia, and she didn't survive the operation. She was about maybe 39, 37 years old. And to me, that was even more heartbreaking than everything else she went through, which was quite a bit, because she had a man that she loved. She had a publisher, she had ideas, she had a future, but we can salute her by reading her books.
Yes, well, yes, I immediately went out and ordered them, actually.
Oh,
because I read about her, and I thought
that's
this
so
was
awesome.
amazing.
That's so awesome. That's what my great hope of this book is that, people will go find a new book or something new to study, which for me is always a happy part of life. So I'm so glad. That's awesome.
It's great. Plus she looks great, which is always important.
She's cool. She has hair like you, sort of.
Yeah,
Really.
that's what I relate to. Better eyeliner she had, though. So look, those are the larger pictures that we picked out. But I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the other themes through the book, and it's also some of the themes that have come out with your recent pandemic work, and it's the notion of travel and how travel helps you and how you felt during the pandemic. I mean, there's a very beautiful phrase that you used, which was, you said your nomadic heart was breaking for the atmosphere of elsewhere. And what I'm interested in is the interplay of having somewhere to go and creating, and then the interplay of that and movement with your work.
Well, I've always wanted to travel since I was a little girl. There are notes about that in the book. I came from, I grew up in the early 1950s. People in America just didn't travel. It's a big country. The war was over. People just wanted to have a nice life. And there was also economic struggles, but people just weren't traveling back then. And that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to see everything. I can remember the first time I saw a picture of a pagoda. I really wanted to see one in person. And that is one thing I'm very grateful to rock and roll for, because I didn't have the resources to travel, but because after I did horses, I was sent on a tour. I got to see everywhere, including one of our first stops, which was London. And but I'm also a very restless person, and I like to write on the go. I like to write in trains, in cafes, sometimes in a hotel room. And I don't really need silence. Like, I'm not one of these writers that need, solitude and silence. I like a din around me. I like it's sort of like an imagined solitude within a cafe, solitude on a moving train, and where you can hear a little bit of din around you. You can hear the people, and also just sounds of a city, and that's how I operate. That's how I like to work. And suddenly being in one city, one place, one room for almost 2 years was very challenging.
Yeah, very difficult. There's that feeling also, I think, when you're out, say in a cafe, because I quite often write in a cafe also, there's that sense of other life. It's the life is happening.
Yes,
It's like, it's important that you feel a sense of something else, that it's, what you're doing is important, but this is equally important, the noise of other people.
Yes, exactly. And also there's that romantic aspect of all of cafe life, of poets and writers and philosophers and people sparring in cafes and so many, so it has its sense of history, the romantic sense of creating in these cafes. And of course, coffee being my favorite drug. It's the best pushers in the world, all over, all over, in Paris and London or Istanbul or Morocco, everywhere you go. I just, I love cafes.
Yeah, you're quite right. So another theme as well. I'm sorry I keep picking on these little bits, so I'm going to pull out.
It's fun.
And it's beds. Having said that, there's definitely, there's your bed sometimes, there's other people's beds throughout. Writers' beds. There's Virginia Woolf's, there's Georgia O'Keeffe's, Frida Kahlo's, quite a
Jim
lot.
Jim Carroll's,
yeah, and there's a lot. And there's a lovely little snap of your own single bed. You have a house in Rockaway Beach. It's so small. I love that. It's so little. It's like a child.
It's a simple little bed. It's a day bed. And I just I find beds so beautiful. I mean, we spend so much time in them, obviously, even if we're alone. I mean, there's the romance and things, different things that happen in a bed, but we're sleeping, we're replenishing ourselves, we're dreaming. Just the fact that this is where people dream most of the time. And I find that idea fascinating. And I like to see people's beds. And I think the favorite picture that I took of a bed was Keats' bed. It's in the Braun House that's in Hempstead in the Heath, on the Heath. And there's a room, and reportedly Keith slept in this bed when he was ill before he went to Italy and sadly died. Who knows, but for me, I'm a romantic. I'm happy to believe that. But when I walked in, I was alone in this room. The whole atmosphere, it was also the time of day or something, but it's a very dusty room, and the atmosphere was very, very dusty, and the bed, everything seemed like it was very, very Dickinson, like it was just created, shrouded with a layer of dust. And I don't mean dirt. I mean some kind of, I don't know, the dust of memory or something. It really looked like you could imagine someone ill there. It had the air of illness, and perhaps it's something one is channels or whatever. But I saw it, and I think I only had 1 or 2 pictures left. I had my Polaroid camera, and I took the picture, and then I was told I wasn't supposed to take a picture, so I just slipped it in my pocket and I left. and I almost forgot about it. And then when I looked at it, I was delighted to find that it captured and retained that same dusty, sort of like sadly ill atmosphere.
Yeah.
So that was a very special picture.
Like a delirious dream as well, isn't it? Like a
Yes.
going into it. I am getting there are a few questions coming through. I'm just going to ask one more before I go to the audience questions, but it is to do with the idea of dream and reality, which I think you've played with really in some of your writing recently.
Oh, absolutely.
And I really love that, because obviously our reality, we are surrounded by what is supposedly real, but our realities are all here. It's all in here. Like, I
Yes.
could be sitting in your room and have a completely different reality to you sitting in your room. That's the thing. And your merging of the two is quite like, I really love it. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about that.
Well, also, I mean, when you were saying that my books, Year of the Monkey and M Train, sort of meld, they're especially Year of the Monkey, sort of autofiction, blending truth or reality with dream or actual fiction.
Yeah.
I think it was in response to working on Just Kids so long. Just Kids, everything is as true as I could possibly make. Everything was as I remembered, as I documented, as I only wrote what I could absolutely see and remember as a film in my mind. I only wrote what I believed to be absolutely true. And it was such a responsibility. I mean, it took me a long time because I had to think about every single sentence and how, it resonated about the New York City, about Robert, of course, Robert's work, the people we were connected to, and whether I liked them or didn't like them, what was, to give them their just due. And that responsibility was so intense that I wanted to write an irresponsible book. So I started M Train, and because I still wanted to tramp through it. I was on my own best character, I think. So I still wanted to do that, but I didn't want to be chained to that kind of responsibility. So I did a lot of melding of fact and fiction. Of course, there's a lot of fact. Everything of my husband is fact. There's everything about Hurricane Sandy is fact, but it's interwoven with some fiction. But Year of the Monkey, I just, it's like half and half. In fact, my publisher asked me in Year of the Monkey about a certain character and if I was still in contact with her. And I was like, it's not a real person. How can I didn't know how to break it to her that it's not a real person. So what are you going to do?
I love it. Okay, so look, I'm going to go to some of the audience questions here. There are lots of people, by the way, wishing Cairo a happy birthday. So,
oh, that's so nice.
I'll
have to she usually wakes up. She's sleeping, but I'll wake her up and bring her over.
Oh yeah, that'd be lovely. So we have, okay, I'm going to there's lots of thank yous. I'm going to this one here. This is Juliet, who is German, living just outside of London, and she says, do you have a poem that you can't help but come back to? For her, it's normally Sylvia Plath. Do you have one, any particular poem that you return to a lot?
Actually, I do. It's a little poem by Gerard de Nerval, and it's called The Dark Blot. I could probably find it. Maybe in a little while I can go look and see if I can find it. It's not very long. I could read it. It's just a beautiful poem. It's not exactly a happy poem. It's just a poem that just speaks of, how certain things, no matter, there are certain things that happen in our life that affect us, and we just can't, we have to sort of absorb them, and it becomes a part of us because we can't eliminate it. And I don't even know if that's a good explanation. I don't like breaking down poetry, but I loved this poem when I was a teenager, and I wasn't sure that I really understood it. It was just something about it struck me. And that was maybe if I was 17. So it's what, 50, 60, 60 years ago, or a little less than 60 years ago. But that's how much this poem stayed with me. So yes, I do. And I'll try to find it and read it. But if I can't find it, it's called The Dark Blot by Gerard de Nerval.
Thank you for that. Okay, so I have another one here, which is, this is about Rambo. I feel like actually I might ask you another question from the book about this. This is Brian from California, who says he loves your Substack, and he says, you often talk about your connection to Arthur Rambo. How did your close connection to his writings happen? I know that this happened very early for you, right?
Yes, well, I have to admit, as I was again a teenage girl, I was, and it was Rambo that really led me to Nerval. I was about 16, and I was at a bus depot in Philadelphia, and there was an outdoor stall with books that were marked down, and there was a New Directions paperback of Rambo's Illuminations that had a picture of him, and of course he was quite beautiful, and it's a beautiful photograph. And I was very taken with him, and I didn't know who he was, but I really wanted the book, and I opened it up and started reading it. And the language, again, I didn't really comprehend all of it, but I just thought it was beautiful. And I didn't, it only cost 99 cents, but back then I had so little money, and I didn't have the money for it. And don't do this, don't try this yourself, but anyway, I nicked the book, and I was really attracted as a young girl to a beautiful young boy, but his language quickly captivated me, and I've been reading him ever since. And in that case, I could judge a book by its cover.
Yeah, quite right. Yeah, the good-looking poet drew you in, and quite right. So look, I'm going to also mention, because in the book, I don't know if I can find there is a picture of Rambo's house, which you have now been given custodianship of. Is that right? What's this
Well,
picture?
I had to. It's the house. His mother had a farm, and the compound was bombed by the Germans in 1914 or 15, and it was rebuilt with the same materials on the same land. So it's the rebuilt farmhouse, and on the same land that was his mother's. It was where he wrote Season in Hell, where he was before he died, where he grew up. And a very old woman had this house who loved Rambo, and she could no longer take care of it. And she wanted someone to take over it who she knew wouldn't give it to developers or knock it down or put condominiums up. And she asked me to take it over. She asked me, for not very much money, truthfully, because it was in disrepair. And I took it on, and I've taken care of it and repaired everything. And right before the pandemic, I was trying to work with the French government to help make it, partially a writers in residence house. So we're working on that. And I love it. It's not the actual house, but the same stones, the same materials, but more important, the same land. This is the land where he'd sleep in the grass or look up at the sky. And it's the same land where he wrote some of the greatest, one Season in Hell, one of the greatest works in poetry. So, and I'm, like you said, I feel myself as a guardian or a custodian.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful picture as well in the book. So look, hang on a minute. I've got some more questions. I'm just going up and down here here we are. Let me have, sorry, there's some of them are very long. Here we are. There's one here that says from Russ in Berlin. I'm very happy with this international element. Are there certain items that you must have with you when you're on tour?
Well, one is this jacket, because I always wear it. I have my same old boots and my same, I pretty much wear the same clothes. I take a handful of very light t-shirts that I wash in the sink and in hotels and hang them up to dry. I like to travel light, and I always have to have a book, a notebook, and some kind of talisman. Usually one always from my daughter. She always gives me something. Maybe it'll be a piece of string to wear around my wrist, or a little bracelet, or you know, a little stone or something. Just small things, and or something at that moment I can't bear to be parted with, and you know, which wouldn't mean much to anyone else, but I know what it means. So some little talisman, and sometimes I'll take pictures of my kids, but I always have to have a book too, and my glasses, because my reading
Otherwise nothing will happen.
Oh my gosh, it's like one of the, you know, one of my most important possessions. If there was only one pair of reading glasses here and the Hope Diamond here, I'd have to take the glasses, because you know, reading is so important to me. But I really travel light. I wonder if it's not up here, but I have a very small suitcase, and if it doesn't fit in, it doesn't go.
Perfect. I like that. Proper traveler. Okay.
Right.
So Scott from Vancouver says, what was the first picture you chose to be included in the book? I'll see if I can find it if you tell me. Can you remember?
Wow. That's actually, I'm so sorry, but I couldn't possibly answer that. I don't know. It was more like no, I just don't know. I know that I wrestled with what would be the first picture that was in the book, which isn't the same question. And the first image is, I didn't even take, a friend of mine took, and I was standing on Rockaway Beach in the winter looking, just looking at the sea. And I just thought it was a nice way to begin, you know, all possibilities open.
Looking out.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm sorry I can't answer that question. That's going to bother me now. I'm going to have to.
You're going to have to think.
It might be if I find out, I'll send you a message.
Okay, great. This one here is from Freya in London. And she says that she was incredibly, has been very inspired by your writing and recollections and your determination to become artists. She was wondering, do you have any advice to impart for young creatives in the current artistic climate?
Well, the current climate is so much different than what I grew up in, and I can't. It's our culture has shifted and changed so many times since I was in my 20s, and I wouldn't even begin to claim to know how to maneuver, you know, the art world and media and social media and things like that. But my advice is always the same to anyone, is just to work hard. If you believe in what you're doing, if you believe in who you are, then you just have to be willing to sacrifice, to suffer sometimes to go a long time without recognition, sometimes to be ignored. There is so much pain in a way that is encompassed in choosing to be an artist. And I watched Robert Mapplethorpe go through all of those things. And you just have to believe in yourself, which is the one beautiful thing I learned from him. He experienced people making fun of him, laughing at him. He wanted to be an artist. He had a scholarship to be a commercial artist, and he didn't want to be a commercial artist. He gave up his scholarship. His father abandoned him because of that. He was looked down upon, and but he believed that he was actually an artist. He didn't want it to make it a job. He believed in himself. And I really felt that from him, and always, kept that also inside of me. And look in our history, people, in other, somebody like William Blake, who went through his whole life, almost no success, died in poverty, was almost forgotten, but he continued to do his work. He never let go of his vision. He maintained his work ethic. And I'm not suggesting that everyone should suffer like that, but I'm suggesting that working hard and staying in your consciousness why you're working. If you're working to be successful, or you want to be a pop artist, or have some great commercial success, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're really want to go as high as possible and create work that hopefully will endure, through the centuries, then you're going to have a tough road, and you have to walk that road proudly.
Yeah, that's very beautiful. Thank you for that. And also, it takes time. And I always think that like a hard thing sometimes for us all to understand when we're 23 is it can take time, and luckily when you're 23 you have time. So I have another one here from, sorry, I've been jumping about, so I'm trying to find it. Here we are. Okay. Laura from Brussels. There's a couple of questions about New York actually, but Laura from Brussels says, how is New York after the pandemic? Does it feel any different?
Yes, well, one thing, it's gotten quite loud. I mean, they allowed New York to have all these outdoor restaurants, which have been very challenging because they're quite loud. Some of the fabric of the city and the way people are, I don't know. I don't want to be negative. There's certain changes I don't really like. People still aren't as communal. People aren't working in a workplace. For a lot of people are working at home, and which I'm not criticizing, but if you go into your publisher or something, there's no people there. Everybody's working virtually. And I miss the sense of community when we were, you would go to your, an office, and there'd be a lot of people there, and everyone's working and talking and communing. And I miss that. New York has gone through so many changes though, since I first came here in 1967. So many economic changes and aesthetic changes. It's the building, the overbuilding, the construction, the skyscrapers, even down in my downtown in my little area. You can hardly find the moon. You have to walk several blocks to find the moon because they're obstructed by so many new tall buildings. But sorry, it's not good to get me on this subject, but of course, New York is still, it's a great city. It's the most diverse city that I've ever been to, one of the most diverse cities in the world. And I'm very proud of that. But there's, in terms of nostalgia, I do miss the New York of my time.
Oh, yeah. And we have here, I'm slightly conscious of time, but I'm going to squeeze some more in. Don't worry.
That's fine.
Andy says, is there a personal place who you have not yet photographed that you would really love to photograph?
Well, I'd like to go to Algeria and photograph the grave of Isabel Eberhardt. That's one of my secret desires. Not so secret now. I'd like to, I would like to visit the desert. I don't know. I've been very lucky. In my life, I'm not even thinking at this point, since I don't have my camera anymore. I think more of just going sometimes and not taking pictures at all, just going and being there. You know,
Yeah.
go to Petra. I've never been to Petra, or you know, go to the Himalayas. But I've been very lucky. I've taken a lot of pictures in my life. I would you know, and at this point, I might think sometimes of putting my camera away and just looking,
Being.
just absorbing.
Yeah. Because otherwise they're just going to make you put it in another book, you know, Patty.
Well, that would be so bad. But I mean, sometimes I have to counsel myself, because everywhere I go, something turns into a picture or a poem, sometimes I just say to myself, just take a little breath and just live. Just walk down that street, look at that sculpture, look at that statue, or, you know, children playing, and just be in the moment. Because it's beautiful to be an artist, but also it always removes you a bit from life. You can't help it, because you become an observer, and you're always not just observing, but almost reconfiguring. And so I think, you know, as I approach my 80s, I'll be doing more seeing and you know, and experiencing.
Yeah, seeing naturally. Yeah. Okay. So look, we're very close to the end now. So I just wanted to ask you, was there a particular picture that that we haven't shown that you'd like me to find and show?
Well, how about if I asked you that? And
Oh yeah, there's so many. Yeah.
I'm going to go over here.
Okay. I shall find some beautiful pictures. I like this one. I'll just show you here. I don't know if you can see it. There you go. So that is Robert Frank, who's an amazing photographer, and that is his artist June Leaf, who's also his wife. Look at that.
Yes, that's such a nice picture. I mean, I took it. I'm sorry. I'm not complimenting myself. I just meant.
It's a great picture. They are so great. Oh, look. Hello, Cairo.
Hello, Sleepy. Say hello.
Hi, Sleepy.
Happy birthday. Everyone says happy birthday.
He's like, yeah, whatever.
But that particular picture, June was having an exhibit of her work at the Whitney, and I went, and I know them both. I know them both, and I was close to Robert Frank, and they were just sitting there. I had been talking to them, and both of them, he had a cane, and both of them had been conversing with people, and I watched them. They both got tired at the same moment, and they both sat down, and I saw it and just took the picture, because they were like, as I think the caption says, it was like they were of one mind.
Yeah,
and
facing outwards, like.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Robert Frank was very supportive of my pictures. He sometimes would walk over. He lived on the Bowery, right near where CBGB's was, and he'd walk over and visit me and look at my pictures. He was a man of few words, but he would look at them and say, you know, give me a nod. And
Amazing.
Was very encouraged by him. And we did a video together, a music video of Summer Cannibals, which I thought was beautifully shot. And it was great to work with him.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah, it's so nice. I mean, they had a good time, a good bit of time together. I was sad when he passed away, because, you know, June, I think, is close. Might be in her 90s at this point, but she's working. She's working.
Is she still? That's amazing.
still in the Bowery, still beautiful and doing her work. So God bless her.
Yeah, God bless her. Yeah, he's yeah, both brilliant. Thank you. So I'm very conscious that we're at the end. Apparently I can't see this, but what somebody has very kindly put the complete Nerval poem in the Q&A, and we're going to send it to the poem to everybody anyway at the end.
That's like, hold on, just do we have one more minute?
Yeah, of course. We've got minutes for you, Patti, don't worry. I'll show you some more pictures while she goes to find the poem. Here we go. Here's a lovely picture of Patti and her mum. You can see that. I particularly like that one because of the way that her mum is looking at her. Slightly questioning. And it says, Happy Mother's Day to all mothers, holding keys to their children's heart.
I have piles of books, you see.
Yeah, we can see. Is that your filing system?
Yeah. There's different piles on the floor, and no, I have one bookcase that has childhood books, and I can't find it, darn it. But I'm glad that they that you're going to send it. That's nice. I think the last line is, alas, the eagle, only he can look. Alas, the eagle, he and only he. Anyway, it's like he can look but not be destroyed by splendor and the sun. And so in any event,
I found it. I'm going to read it to you, and then you can read it.
Good.
I'm aware that this is incredibly disappointing to everyone because I'm not you, but I'm going to read it.
No.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to read it to you so that you hear it.
Yeah, I would love to hear it.
He who has gazed against the sun sees everywhere he looks thereafter, palpitating on the air before his eyes, a smudge that will not go away. So, in my days of still youth, my audacity, I dared look on the splendor momentarily. The dark blot on my greedy eyes has come to stay. Since when, worn like a badge of mourning in the sight of all around me, where my eye may chance to light, I see the dark smudge settle upon everyone. Forever thus between my happiness and me, alas for us, the eagle only he can look and not be hurt on splendor and the sun.
Yes. Oh, thank you. That's
what a beautiful poem. Thank you so much.
Good job. But also, it's just I think I interpreted it that for me it was like the smudge is almost like the burden of being an artist, because you always, as I said, there's always something between you and participating fully in life, and that's because we're always creating, reconstructing, reconfiguring, translating what we're doing and what we're seeing into something else. We can't help it, but it's part of the, everything has its price in a way, and we just, if we decide that is how we're going to go, then we have to just grasp it honestly and go forward. So me and the dark blot and Cairo says
we will go. So look, I'm going to take a photo of you.
Dark blot or not, I'm quite happy. So
you're happy with your smudge. So look,
yeah.
I would like to say, obviously, to everybody, if you haven't got a copy, there it is. A Book of Days is out now. Guardian Live have got other things coming up, including events with Neil Gaiman and Greta Thunberg, and you can find out more at theguardian.com/Guardian Live. But of course, tonight has been all about Patti Smith. We'd like to say thank you so much. It's been so lovely to talk to you. This is such a lovely.
It was awesome, and you were great. You're awesome too. And hello, goodbye, and hello and goodbye, everybody.
Yes, thank you so much. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for some great questions too. Have a lovely evening. Goodbye.
Bye.